Are you having a brilliant morning, Frank?
Brilliant, Amanda.
Good.
Yes,
I know that's one of your favorite words.
it is.
Um, Today we're going to talk about giving away things for free
Free, free, free.
and brands doing that,
Yes.
um, and how to know when to give things away.
Mhm.
So, why do you think we should talk about this?
Well, we live in a very value-driven market. So for
Mhm.
quite a while, I mean, this is probably not a surprise, like especially in business-to-business environments. People just have been kind of trained to expect things for free to a certain extent. We look
Mhm.
for uh, you know resources and information and content, and we expect it for free. I don't know if that's because of Google or all these different things. We don't have to get into that, but it's a necessary thing to drive people, right? But at the same time, it can be really hard to figure out like what is too much to be giving away for free, and we can talk about some of those concerns. But we just want to share a little bit of information about like, hey, how do you think through that, and how do you determine what you should give away for free and what you should reserve as something that should definitely be paid for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, giving away things for free is great for consumers, but sometimes it's scary for brands.
Mhm.
So, what are some concerns that a lot of times brands have that maybe make them nervous to try it?
Yeah. The top one I think is that, well, I should say top two. I think there's plenty, but one is that people are going to like steal their secrets, right? Their secret
Mhm.
sauce and run away with it. So basically, if you've been doing something for 20 years, it's what made you successful, and now you're afraid to talk about how you work or how you add value to clients because if you give away too much, then people won't actually pay for it, right?
Mhm.
The second is that no one is actually going to buy what you really want them to buy once you give something away for free. It's kind of like, hey, they've tasted it enough to where they're not going to be interested now in actually working with me or actually, buying that service in full or whatever it might be. Um, and I think another one is, people will try kind of like what you offer, whether it's information or content or even a type of that product in a sense,
Mhm.
and they won't like it, and then you've lost your opportunity for a sale, right? I think there's probably legitimacy to all of those, and that there's certainly times that things like that can happen. But I think most of the time those are fears that are easily spoken to and addressed if you use the right kind of like mindset or approach to figuring out what it is you want to give away for free. So yeah, I don't know if you have any more to add to that.
No, I think those are really good points. And I've certainly talked with brands that have had all of those concerns. But
Yeah.
um, I guess to kind of get over that, you have to think about number one, you need to make sure whatever you give away is valuable to the consumer, but also is the right thing for your brand to
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I think, overcome that objection, or that's one of the ways to do that. So, what are some of the things that, or how can you determine really what you should be giving away?
Yeah, sure. Um, I think the first thing to think through is kind of the opposite of that, right? So before you think through what do you give away for free, you have to absolutely nail down what is it that you don't give away for free. What is your
Hmm.
monetization strategy, right? Like what is it that you really sell? At the end of the day, what is it that brings in your revenue that you have good margin on? That's your product that you know you cannot afford to give
Hmm.
away for free. Once you know that, basically anything else is on the table or has potential to be free at that point, right? Or add value. Doesn't mean it has to be, but everything else is now in consideration for that. And that can also change over time. So maybe early in business or early in the establishment of your business, you really only have one major thing that people are paying for. But obviously, businesses like to grow and grow top line revenue.
Hmm.
So you might add things around that people then pay for, whether it's additional products or even levels of that product. And that's okay. As long as you know it and you're aware of it, and as soon as you change that, you can then identify everything else that has the potential to be just a value add. The second is then asking, okay, once you've determined that, does what you're giving away move people closer to engaging with you or move people closer to a conversion?
That's
I
a good
think
one.
that's pretty critical,
Mhm.
right? Um, a lot of times it could be like, well, I can give this away for free. That's great, but is it kind of just useless or a waste of your time, or is it actually intentional? So anytime you're giving something away, never think of it outside of the context of like a funnel or some type of
Mhm.
like journey, right? It has to be something that has connectivity between, awareness and consideration of your brand and gives them enough value to when they consider or that they consider doing it. So it should have enough related value to what you actually sell, that people naturally and organically are kind of attracted to that point of sale after that. And then the third one or the last one is just, can you afford it, right? You don't want to give away things that take up way too much time. So if you bill for things like time, like a service-based company, then you can't afford to give too much of that away, because that's your monetization strategy, your time, right? You can give away a bunch of education and resources and tangible pieces of that, because that's now duplicated, and so you're not using your time on it. But then one thing to consider with that is also ROI, right? If you're sitting down, if you get the opportunity to sit down at a keynote for 4 hours, or even maybe a day's conference or whatever, you're not getting paid for it other than maybe covering travel costs or whatever. That may be worth your consideration, because not only are you building the opportunity to have direct clients come from that, but also that may just be part of your overall marketing strategy, getting thought leadership out there, right? So that's worth considering as well. But yeah, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, or
I think those are all super great points. And I like your kind of reversal of it, of what should be paid. And also even like that last point about talking to the monetization of it. And or like if you can afford it, and how much it's really costing you. Because I think a lot of times, at least in the service industry and some of the things I see, and specifically our industry, any business consulting, is that a lot of times during the sales process, people give away way too much knowledge for free. Instead of adding value and like showing themselves as an authority, they give away a lot of it. I actually think it'd be really helpful, even if you were to kind of walk through an example of how somebody could do that, or how a brand could do that, just to kind of help make it materialize in their brains, I guess.
Yeah, sure. And even before that, I think it could be helpful too to like talk about the third part of it, like, can you afford it, right? Let's say you have a product. An example that just came to my mind, I used to work for a brand, we did like supplements, right? And the concern was always like, well, we can't afford to give away samples. It's going to be a line item. You have to account for it. You have to cost for it, right? But at the same time, samples had one of the highest returns for us on new customer acquisition. And so it's worth considering. Again, there's other ways to do it, but at the same time, if paying for something is going to have a better ROI, then it's worth considering, as long as you can afford it.
Yeah, I even like to carry that one point further. We have done paid strategies for clients and even ourselves. And sometimes we recognize that you pay a lot of money to get a lead, and maybe, and maybe their conversion isn't that great, but if you can give a little bit more of your time or a little bit of your product away for free, your lead acquisition costs can actually go down, because you might be working with a smaller amount of leads with a higher conversion rate than just throwing money at paid media and paid ads and paid efforts and having a lower conversion rate. So it might even just be moving budget from one line item to another, or even just an internal cost versus an external expense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really wise. I think that's great. Okay, so to answer your other question, then, like an example of that. So what we covered a few minutes ago, right? Questions to ask yourself: what do you truly sell? So what's your monetization strategy? Be aware of that. Does it move people closer to a sale with you? And then, can you afford it? So we went through those. So let's walk through a business example of that. If you were if you're a business management consultation firm, let's say, you focused on management principles, all that type of stuff. So your core monetization strategy, then, let's say, is really simple. It's just your consultation. It's just your consulting offering. And so, that involves meeting with clients, examining their business. So like diagnosing certain issues, depending on how much time that takes for your industry, giving them insights on their business, etc. Right? So that process is the only thing you monetize at this point. You have great margin on it. That's how you get revenue. Great. So now you know exactly what you do. Let's say that's the only thing you do, right? Or that's the only thing you get paid to do, or want to get paid to do. So let's say you write a short book or an ebook, or whatever it is. It's a good piece of information. It's not just a PDF, but it's like a fuller book format, where you share, let's say, the top 5 skills of business management. All right. So that is it aligned with your audience, all those questions you want to ask on another level, but ultimately that's what you create. And that may involve some type of framework or methodology that you've come up with for, let's say, the past 10, 15 years you've been doing it. Helps you be successful. Great. So does that move people closer to a sale? Answer our second question. Again, there's a lot of variables, but I would argue in that case, yes, right? Because one, it aligns with your audience and their kind of intent in looking for the type of business you do. But you're giving them a percentage of your insight. You're giving them something that shares credibility about what you do. It
Mhm.
builds interest in
Yeah.
like, hey, this guy has done something for a really long time. It's worked for the people that he served. I wonder what he has to say. And so, yes, it's a closed resource in the sense that, it's a book, so they can't ask questions to you directly yet. But likely a lot of people, when they read that, let's say even roughly 20% of people that read that are interested, out of a couple thousand, and say, yeah, I kind of want to learn more. I want to know more, whatever. Then you have something in your sales process to diagnose and all those things. Because I think people are going to be interested in that case in buying your full service, where now they have a real resource, a real person coming in and examining their unique situation. People want to know that you have the ability to do what you do, but they're not going to be experts in everything. So a lot of wise, at least, companies will look to other people sometimes for outside perspective on it. And I think that's valuable. And the last thing, can you afford it? In this case, I think it's pretty simple, right? That individual, he or she did that one time, right? They've duplicated their knowledge, they've duplicated themselves,
Mhm.
and now that resource is living out there for them without them having to spend, time and time again, as cliche as that phrase is, doing that all the time. It's a single piece of collateral, that kind of like builds interest and compounds on itself, other than some possible tweaks and changes. So yeah, I think
I
that's
love this.
an example. But
That's super smart to think through. And it's always good to think about how you can add value, how you can prove your authority and that you're legit, you know what you're talking about. And um, being smart with what information or products or service you have available for free is so important. It's been
yeah,
really helpful.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for always doing these, Amanda. It's really fun to talk and hopefully share value. That's what we're doing here.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. All right, I'll see you later, Frank.
all right. Thanks, Amanda. Bye.